Welcome to the Dad and Cole Football Patrol.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Dad.
And I'm Cole.
Cole, so I think there's one story that's dominating all the headlines now that NFL training camp season is upon us, and what might that be, my friend?
Holdouts.
So we don't want to talk about holdouts and the business side of football whenever training camp comes back, but Adam Schefter, the big sports news guru over at ESPN, he said this is the biggest story. I think we both agree with him. So we're not going to get into all the guys who are holding out. There's a handful, but we're going to talk about the three biggest ones and what their potential impact of their team is. So we got Ezekiel Elliott, running back from the Dallas Cowboys. We got another running back out in the West Coast, Melvin Gordon from the Chargers. And then wide receiver, Michael Thomas from the New Orleans Saints. Cole, out of those three biggest guys, which fan base do you think should be most nervous about their guy holding out of camp?
Well, everybody knows the name Ezekiel Elliott.
So you think it's Zeke?
I think it's Michael Thomas.
All right, so you think wide receiver Thomas from the Saints. Talk about it. Why do you think he's potentially the biggest impact of the team?
Because they don't have any other good wide receivers, and Mark Ingram got traded to the Ravens. So
he might have been a free agent, but yeah, he's over with Baltimore right now. Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm with you. Now, what about Zeke, though? Some people would argue that Zeke is the most valuable player to the Cowboys, but you still think Thomas potentially has the biggest impact of a loss to their team.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to agree with you, and here's my quick thoughts. While I do think Ezekiel Elliott is most valuable to the Cowboys offense, they're a run-first offense. I don't think Dak is that prolific as a passer. However,
but he did do well passing last year.
Dak did have, especially down the stretch, he did have a good close of the year. And once they got Amari Cooper too, so I'm with you. Yeah. His game picked up. You do need to have players.
I forgot about Amari Cooper.
Yeah, right. And he's starting out with the team this year. But for me, you can get adequate replacement value from second, third-tier running backs. I don't know that that's as the case with the wide receiver position, especially when you talk about a guy like Michael Thomas who dominates receptions. He can play anywhere on the field, touchdowns. That offense runs through him.
Jet sweeps.
Yeah, anything and everything, right. And, man, if he is not on the field, I think Drew Brees is going to be hurting for finding playmakers. I think it'll be easier to key in on Kamara. So I just think that,
But, he was doing pretty well with other wide receivers last year.
Who's this, Drew Brees you're talking about?
In the playoffs, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Drew Brees is going to do good with almost anyone you put on the field. That guy's a special talent. But I think you and I both agree there's Thomas, then there's everyone else on that offense.
Yeah. Dad, are the Cleveland Browns overhyped this year?
Yeah, well, listen, this is probably one of the biggest fun questions to talk about.
Not the whole Browns team, one player.
Well, no, I think a lot
Mayfield.
Baker, a lot of guys on that team are getting a lot of hype. I'm going to throw it right back to you. What's your gut tell you? Are they worth the hype? Are they contenders for that division? Or do you think they could stumble?
So there's a chart. 0 out of 10. I pick 5. I think they're going to do kind of good, in the middle.
So you almost see sort of like a repeat of last year. I think they were 7 and 9, maybe a little bit better than that. So, but by my count, when you're in a division with the Ravens and the Steelers, I don't think you think then that they can win that division. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, dude. To me, we've seen this story before where a team gets picked to be like the off-season darling, where everyone's pumping them up, talking about how they're going to go in and dominate the division, and they fall well short of expectations. The NFL is
they have all these good players on their team, but maybe they can fall. Maybe Beckham can go down or something.
Yeah, or maybe are all those egos, so to speak, the personalities, are they going to be able to mesh and get along? Yeah. Could there be issues with some of that stuff?
Well, there's 2 people that I know that will get along with each other.
Who's that?
Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool story, right? And tell the folks why.
Because they were LSU wide receivers together.
How neat is that? I think that's a cool story. 2 guys that played on the same college team now being reunited in the pros. Yeah. you're bringing up a good point. Maybe that's someone that can really peer with OBJ and be a buddy for him and can help him out. But I don't know. It was Jarvis. I guess he had a pretty strong year last year. In Miami, he was more of a slot guy. But for Cleveland last year, they had him more on the outside. I wonder if maybe they can get him working in the middle of the field a little bit more, where he had a lot more success in Miami.
They were using David Njoku last year more.
Njoku was awesome last year, and I would like to think that with having Beckham on the outside now, that even opens it up more for Njoku maybe to have a bigger year, right?
Because maybe, like, since most D-backs know that Beckham's a good player, maybe they'll, like, double him a lot, and that will leave Njoku free.
I think you're making a great point. And typically when an outside receiver gets doubled like that, you're talking about a cornerback and then maybe a safety hanging out on top, and a safety that might typically work the seams in the middle of the field to take a tight end. So I think you're making a great point there. Here's who I'm worried about, Cole. I want to get your thoughts. You were really big on this dude heading into last year, and you were right. You were all about Baker Mayfield last year and Mahomes. You loved both those guys heading into the season, and I thought Mayfield was awesome, but there's a thing in the NFL where first-year starters can tend to have issues as a quarterback the second year because defensive coordinator...
Really all rookies.
Well, actually, that's a great point. Anyone in the league, regardless of position, because now there's a year's worth of film for defensive coordinators to really dig into. Do you think he can have any kind of regression or struggle, or do you think the sky's the limit for him?
I think he can... I think he's going to have a little bit of struggle in, like, the end of the year, maybe.
Okay.
With, like, the playoffs are coming near, and maybe he'll have his team, like, super high, and then he loses every single game.
Well, you're making an interesting point that there can be some early season success or even some just overall regular season success, but when you get into a lose or lose and go home scenario of the playoffs, defenses tend to get stingier, game planning gets more intense, and younger quarterbacks really can get exposed a little bit in playoffs. I think we saw that with Goff in the Super Bowl last year. So I think we both agree, no matter what, though, the Browns are going to be fun to watch this year, aren't they? I'm kind of rooting for them. I think Cleveland is a great football city. Their fans are so loyal. They were without a team for some time. So I want to see the team do well. What about you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Cole, for our final segment here, I don't know that we've talked fantasy football yet in any of our off-season videos. So, man, the time is now. With training camp back, let's get into a quick fantasy football segment to wrap up our episode here. We're going to go boom or bust. You and I are each going to pick one guy that we think can really outshine the expectations, and then we're going to talk about a guy that's potentially going to be a bust, who's going to end up El Stinkarusco compared to what people are saying for him right now. I'll let you kick it off, Cole. First, why don't you give us who's going to be your boom player?
Tyler Boyd, a wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Dude, I like this pick a lot, and he just got a big deal. So why don't you talk a little bit what you think with your pick here, why you're going Tyler Boyd?
He just got a 4-year extension, and also today, AJ Green hurt his left leg.
Something about his foot or something. We're not exactly sure. But listen, Green has been a little bit injury prone a little bit the past few years. Boyd had a big breakout season last year. I think, was it his third year last year for Boyd? Had a breakout, and maybe there's some more room for him to even shoot up above. And I agree. He's a guy I don't think a lot of people talk about because Cincinnati's kind of an under-radar team. I like your pick there.
Because, like, with Dalton, he's not, like, a top rated quarterback.
He's not a super flight guy, so some of his SIL guys go under the radar, right?
And they don't really have any good running backs or anything. Their defense is...
Mixon is decent, but I don't think he's, again, to your point, not like a top flight guy that everyone will rattle off as one of maybe even the top 10 running backs.
And, like, their defense is nothing really.
Yeah. So the hope is maybe they're going to have to chuck the ball a little bit, and Boyd even gets more looks and stats this year. I like that pick. Let's go to the other end. Who's going to be your bust?
I picked Saquon Barkley.
What? Saquon Barkley as your bust? Dude, I want to hear your reasoning. Where are you going with this? Interesting, gutsy call by you.
Because usually second years have a hard time. Because, like, most first years, like last year, they were super good. And this year, I think they're gonna be that Barkley's gonna have he's gonna fall off a cliff.
Well, I don't know if he's going to fall off a cliff, but I think you're talking about a scenario that I dealt with in fantasy 3 years ago now with Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley had a strong rookie campaign on a pretty bad team. The second year after that, he struggled a bit because the players around him were just not there. The coaching was bad, and he had a letdown in his second year.
They didn't have McVay there either.
Right, he hadn't been there yet. I think that was Fisher's last year, to your point. So you're worried about Beckham being gone. Guys like Sterling Shepard just got hurt. Golden Tate may be suspended. That's some newer news that popped out.
Eli Manning. They have a new quarterback.
Yeah.
And Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and so to your point, if Daniel Jones starts, that might even make it harder on Barkley. Yeah. Dude, I like where you're going with this one. That's a gutsy call, but Saquon Barkley you heard it here, guys. Gutsy call from my dude Cole on his bus. Good job, man.
Who is going to be your boom?
Well, I'm going to go with a little bit of a deep dark horse guy. I like running back Matt Breida, San Francisco 49ers. I thought last year in the games where he stayed healthy, and he has a little bit of an injury risk, he shined on a bad football team. I don't know about Jerick McKinnon. He's coming off a bad injury. I think there is going to be a role.
But Garoppolo's back. He can just throw the ball.
Well, but I think Garoppolo coming back actually helps the running game. I think that takes pressure off the running game. And I think in a Shanahan-led offense, Kyle Shanahan, there's room for two running backs to have success like we saw in Atlanta with Freeman and Coleman. Now you have Coleman in San Fran. I think Breida can be that second guy. So I like being able to get him in a late round flyer, potentially having some strong upside as a running back on which should be an improved offense.
Maybe they'll just use Coleman the whole entire.
Well, I hope not, because that would ruin my pick as him being a boom guy.
So, Dad, who's your bust?
Well, I'm going to stick with the same team, but I'm going to go to the tight end position. I think George Kittle has the potential to really disappoint owners this year, and that's not to say he's not going to be a great tight end for the long haul, but he's getting some significant hype. People talk about Kelce, Ertz, and then Kittle in the same breath. I've seen tight ends pop off on bad teams in the past. Let's think of Gary Barnidge a little while ago, was explosive with multiple touchdowns on a bad Browns team, never to be heard of from again after that. I don't think
even know that.
Yeah, but he's a little bit before your time in fantasy. I don't think that's Kittle, but I don't know that we can automatically put him up there with Kelce and Ertz. So I think he might have. And also the other thing is that offense should be better. It should be more diverse, and I think, again, that potentially lends to Kittle to regress slightly. We'll see. I might be way off on that, but I just think people are way overhyping him.
They'll also be using him a lot because, they don't have any really good wide receivers.
Well, you're right about that. And you're maybe making the point against me on why he could still be the man. But I just think
Or maybe he can be missing every catch that's thrown at him.
Well, I hope not. I wish the guy well. I just think people need to slow down a tiny bit with automatically putting him up there with Kelce and Ertz. That's all I'm saying.
So leave us a comment on who is your boom and bust.
Yeah, guys, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment. Let us know your fantasy football boom and bust pick for the season. And then we would be honored if you could hit the red subscribe button. That keeps you in tune to our channel and all the episodes we're going to be putting out. Cole, how great is it? Training camp is back. Football season's finally here again. It's great to be back. I love doing these episodes with you. Guys, thanks for checking out our video, right? See ya.
Bye.